Hey guys, how are you? So today's book is The Power of Babel by John McWhorter. So this book talks about language, how language is a thread that weaves the fabric of human experience, of human connection. Yet it is a thread that often slips through our fingers, and constantly evolving, transforming in millions of ways that are utterly fascinating, how it's evolving over time, and it is still evolving. And the writer of the book shows the rises and the falls and the changes of the languages, the reforms across time and space of the language. And so the first chapter, I'm going to go by chapter so you get a better understanding what the book is about. I'm just going to give you an overview. So it talks about the first language, how, according to the scientists, linguistic scientists, they understand what is the first language is and how it evolved and all of that. It is mentioned that there was a primal language, okay, and the first language transformed into the more than 6,000 languages we have today. It's like watching a river break, it's like watching a river break into countless other rivers, and it's pretty amazing how it evolves. And each root of the river holds its distinct identity. It's sort of an amalgamation. Two languages come and third is made, but it also keeps the other two qualities, other two essence of the languages. But it all came from one source, from one language. And take, for instance, English. English is a mixture of Germanic roots and Latin influences and French nuances. And this is a blend. This blend is a reminder that every language carries a lineage, and a cultural DNA that it sort of evolves over time, and marking the ever-evolving nature of human communication. And then the writer in the book, it talks about that even in a single language, there are different dialects. There are thousands of dialects and sub-languages, each with its own nuances and quirks, own phrases, own understanding, own grammatical essence. And consider the English spoken in the American South versus that is in the United Kingdom. And what started as one language has now splintered into countless regions and expressions. It's really fascinating is that the case of language fractions, where language expands and divides, creating clusters of its own, bits and pieces of its own, but also keeping its identity. And they still speak the same fundamental tongue, English. All over the world, it is spoken the same fundamental tongue, but they carry within them the weight of centuries of cultural influence. In this book, it also gives you examples like how dialects don't just coexist, they also collide with each other and they make other languages from it, even dialects. So, and from this collision, new languages sort of form, and just think of how the Creoles emerged from the Caribbean, and blending African, European, and indigenous languages together. These hybrid forms of languages are not mere accidents, but rather they are result of complex human interactions, how they communicated, how they understood and extracted certain words and dialects from the other person, and how they traveled all over the world. And they sort of also tell us the story of survival of language, how it survived all these years and how it adapted and how it is still alive, the words we speak. And when languages meet, they do more than communicate, they sort of transform. You know, like languages are fragile creatures, and it is sort of a sad truth also that many languages die and are still dying, and we cannot do anything to save them. But even in their death, they leave behind remnants, some certain parts and fragments that find new life in other tongues, new meanings, but the word is the same. You just tweak it a little bit in the dialects, in the grammar, and all of that. The survival of linguistic features such as certain words endings or sounds, like showcases how language is far from static, and it's sort of like a phoenix. It may fall, but always has the potential to rise again and become alive again from its death. The book also talks about frozen languages, the languages that get genetically altered but frozen. They stay in time. Tongues that have been altered but remain in a preserved state, like a linguistic museum exhibit. And the case of Latin is a prime example, and also Arabic. It evolved into Latin. I'm talking about it evolved into the Roman languages, but still carries remnants of its original essence and form in academic and religious contexts. And this is the paradox of language. It can be both living and dead, and adapting and becoming something new, but also keeping its original identity, and yet somehow eternal in the minds of its speaker. It stays alive in our DNA. In the end of the book, the writer of the book shows us that the language is more than just a tool, is that language, it is a living creature. It thrives on us. It is alive, and it is a breathing entity that grows over time and adapts and shapes the very thing we understand, the very thing how we understand reality, how we communicate with reality. It's a living creature. The book makes this idea that it is sort of a bridge between the past and the future, and between people and ideas, between communication. As we lose languages, we risk losing pieces of humanity, diverse history and heritage. But as we learn from the resilience of languages, like Hebrew, Arabic, we see that language's power is enduring. It can still be alive, and it still is. And even though you read Hebrew or Arabic today, you can also like look back to the old text, and you can still have an understanding of what is written. And language can be reborn. It can continue to evolve, and perhaps most importantly, it can help us rediscover the beauty of human connection that we once had, that we once have, and what can we have in the future. So I guess, yes guys, this is it. It talks about how it evolves, how certain communities communicated with each other by not learning the whole language but bits and pieces of the languages, and how they communicated and how their words went to their communities and vice versa. Yeah, it is a good read. It is a detailed read, how languages evolved and how it is a living entity. And if you guys have any questions regarding the book or any other book, do let me know in the comments. I would get the book. If you want me to talk more about certain books that I've already done, I can also do that. And I guess that is for today. And have a good day.